Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mama Jack podcast. Today, we have a play therapist. Her name is Kim Feeney, and she has so much information to give us. It is so interesting. My son was actually recommended this. We haven't gotten him in yet, but we're working on it. So, without any further delay, here is Kim and I's interview.
Hi, Kim. How are you today?
I am doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I am so excited to have you on today. I don't think you have any idea how excited I am to have you on today because you're a play therapist, right?
I am.
And they wanted my son to do play therapy, but we were having so much trouble finding one that he's actually not even in it because the
Oh,
one woman we were going to get into, we thought she was covered by insurance, and then all of a sudden she wasn't, and it was $250 per session, and it was once every week, and we were like, oh my god, that's a lot of money. So we decided to wait it out a little longer, but
sure.
this means so much to me.
Well,
You have no idea.
I am so glad to join you, and I'm so sorry that there's so many barriers for people like you and others that want to get help.
Yeah, it's been very interesting because my son he was just having some trouble, and they
Mhm.
thought with food and stuff, and they thought it was more than just food therapy because of the
Sure.
way he's acting with it. And then he's having trouble with his dad when he comes back from work because his dad either works away or works long hours, and he
Yeah.
was acting out and all this other stuff. So they suggested play therapy. But yeah, for us, it was just so hard to find someone. And then I was like, you know what? I'll wait till the summer and we'll go from there, see where he's
Sure.
at. So,
It definitely sounds like there's probably a behavioral component to that a play therapist can absolutely help with, though.
yeah. So explain to us what play therapy is.
Yeah, play therapy is doing therapy like mental health therapy with children or behavioral therapy with children because play is how kids communicate. They don't have the cognitive verbal abilities that we do as adults to express our thoughts and our feelings. So they do it through play. They do it through Legos and art and puppets and dolls, and it's how they express their feelings. It's how they express their wants and their needs. It's their method of communication.
That's so
And
cool.
yeah, I, as the play therapist, I get to observe the child in the play. I get to, make those verbal connections for them. Dan Siegel, who's a famous psychologist, has this phrase, name it to tame it. So by naming it for the kid, what they're feeling, thinking, behaving, in, of course, their developmental language, then that helps to calm it down, to regulate it, to make it better for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It truly seems like incredible. So tell us what you look for when you're doing these sessions.
Yeah, when I'm in a play therapy session, I look for the nonverbals of the child, like their facial expressions, the way they react, their body posture, their voice tone. I look for the ways that they interact with the toys. I get to reflect on not only the client, the child that I'm working with, but also the toy. If the mom puppet is angry at the dad puppet, I get to say that for the kid. So it's multi-level. It's when you think of it as just playing, and it's, as a play therapist, that's one of the my pet peeves is, you're just playing with my child. No, I'm not really just playing with your child. I'm looking at those little nuances in their play to determine ways that we can shift their way of thinking, feeling, and behaving to a more socially appropriate way. And I get to be kind of that translator for the parents, about their child.
Hmm.
I'm honored to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's just so awesome to me. The whole idea of it makes so much sense to me. I can't imagine the training that goes into it for you because it's just so many nonverbal cues, right?
Right. You have to be on all the time. You have to be aware and observing. And like I said, I communicate to the child verbally as they're playing. I reflect, I noticed that you frowned when the, the sister doll had to go outside. Or I noticed that you got frustrated when the Legos wouldn't go together the way that you wanted them to. Again, naming it to taming it for that kid. And it's easy, you know, is we like I'm sure you watch your son play, and sometimes it's you check out. You think about your grocery list or what you're going to make for dinner, or the million and one things you've got going on. But as a play therapist, I have to stay in tune and resonate with that child in their play all the time.
So, what kind of children do you normally get in there? What has been happening that they would need play therapy?
There's a ton of different things, and different play therapists have different niches that they specialize in. I see kids as young as 3 in my practice, and I have kids all the way up to 17, uh, for a variety of issues. Sometimes it's just like life transitions. They may be going through a divorce, or there may be a death, or there may just be a lot of moves or things going on in their school, any sort of little life transition. Of course, I do get those more heartbreaking cases where it's going to be like some sort of abuse or neglect. Um, Unfortunately, in that, in my field, it just sometimes those cases are unavoidable. I get also your typical, or your, more classic mental health disorders like mood disorders, depression in some of the teens, anxiety in the kids, ADHD. So again, it can run the whole gamut of scenarios and presenting problems for the child and the family.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think, like I said, I think it's so cool. And I really wanted to get my son into it. And I'll try again.
Yes, I hope you
Probably,
do.
I mean, the one doctor, we waited like 3 months and then it was going to get all set up. And then, like I said, like all of a sudden it's like the place she's at takes our insurance, but she doesn't. And I was like, well, I wish I would have known that 2 months ago. Like he could have had treatment
Right.
somewhere else for 2 months. And like she's super busy,
Hmm.
but and I don't think she has any help. I think everything goes through her.
Sure.
So I kind of get it, but it was a little disappointing. Play therapists are hard to come by. I don't know about everywhere, but definitely where I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a specialized credential. I mean, it's beyond your master's degree, or your graduate degree in whatever field, whether it be social work or counseling or psychology, and it's additional training and supervision and all that kind of stuff. And I understand that play therapists are hard to come by, but I would recommend that you do look for a registered play therapist or a registered play therapist supervisor, because it is somebody that has had that specific training and has put that time and that effort into, like I said, learning that the language of kids,
Hmm.
and it's definitely worth it.
So for little kids, you look for like faces and stuff. What about older kids? Like, how does that process work as they age?
Yeah, the verbal abilities as they develop, we do bring those into more into the session, but I also still like to use a lot of nonverbal, expressive arts with older kids. I use like just like your art techniques, your drawing, your painting. I also use like sand tray, where we use like miniature toys, like toys you would get in your Happy Meals, or little figurines that we use in the sand to like it connects our unconscious to the conscious, and using the right and left brain. It can get really scientific, but using the, like I said, the toys to communicate, and not putting the pressure on even some of those like 12, 13, 14-year olds to sit there and talk like you have seen traditionally in like your therapy in the movies with adults, your talk, your communication that way. And so we look for like what that symbol might mean for the kid, or like the colors in the art, or again, still their nonverbals and their reactions, and all those different layers of things that we can look for in all those expressive activities.
Is there anything that us as parents could start to watch for?
Definitely. There's different parent programs out there that teach parents how to use these techniques to play with their kids. There's filial therapy is one specific type. Again, it's a therapy where the parent comes in, and the therapist teaches the parent how to look for these things and to use therapeutic statements in the child's play. I am more. My mentor is Terry Cotman, who does Adlerian play therapy, and she is about to launch another parent program, very similar to Filial. again, where we teach the parents the different techniques. So you can look for therapists out there that do that, or any sort of like family therapy component or parent coaching, parent consultation can definitely teach. But you guys can do it just simply reflecting the feelings to your child.
Mm-hmm.
If you see that your child is disappointed or frustrated or excited, just say, hey, I see that you're really excited right now about your birthday party that's coming up. And again, just naming it for that child bridges that gap between the sensations they're having in their body and then that verbal linkage.
So you think it's better to name it than to ask? Like, for instance,
Hmm.
my son will have, like, he has a birthday party next Saturday. Okay. It's not his, but
Sure.
I always am like, or we're going to visit my parents. And I'm always like, oh, are you excited to go? And he'll say yes or no. But do you think it's better that if he's talking about it, like I just say, oh, you seem really excited about it? Is that better for and more age appropriate for like a 3, almost 4 year old?
I think it's definitely more age appropriate for you to reflect the feeling
Mm-hmm.
in more of a statement and factual way than to question. Because again, questioning, it kind of puts kids on the spot
Mm-hmm.
and they go into that cognitive ability. Whereas if you just reflect it, then they're able to gauge yes or no, is this correct for me? And again, it's more about the body sensation, which is more natural for kids, versus that cognitive verbal statement.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah, reflecting it, and I would say 9 times out of 10, kids are going to tell you if you're wrong.
mm-hmm.
If I say it looks like you frowned when I mentioned your dad because dad couldn't come to your baseball game last week. No, I'm upset with my dad because he grounded me from my phone. They're going to tell you
Mm-hmm.
if you're wrong.
Yeah, yeah. He already is telling us if we're right or wrong.
Exactly. And kids as young as 3 and 4 will do that. They're Kids are such good observers and they know what's going on. They're not the best interpreters. So if we can reflect and interpret for them, then they can kind of gauge again using their body sensations if that lands for them.
Nice.
Mhm.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I always fall into, because my son's having issues with speech. So I always
Mhm.
want to put the words in his mouth, like
Sure.
excited, this, that. And I
Mhm.
guess, like, even calling out what I am would probably help, right? Like, oh, mommy's
Absolutely.
so excited about this, or,
Mhm.
whatever the situation is.
And that's one of the things that I teach parents in parent consultations is to narrate for your child what you're going through. One of the ways that I say we model encouragement for kids is just modeling the courage to be imperfect ourselves.
Hmm.
Sometimes as parents and adults, I think we feel like we have to project this perfect image to our kids that we don't make mistakes. And that's not real life for anybody.
Hmm.
And by acknowledging the fact that we do get sad or scared or even overly excited or overly silly, or that we burn dinner sometimes, or whatever that little minor mistake may be, reflecting that for the kid and just saying, hey, you know I'm getting frustrated, I'm going to take some deep breaths, and just modeling that for our children, it can go so far.
Yeah, I love that.
Hmm.
I really do love that. So when does play therapy start? You said you work 3 and up. Are there people that do even younger?
There are, like, TheraPlay is a special modality I know that works with little kids. Even like they work on like the attachment with infants and parents,
Hmm.
or adoptive, like newly adoptive families, to work on that attachment bond. So yeah, there's different, like I said, different play therapists have different niches and specialties, and you can find somebody out there for whatever you're looking for. And honestly, with the ability of telehealth now, I mean, I'll be honest, telehealth with a child is not my preferred modality. However, I do know some play therapists that are very specialized in it and have made it work. So it kind of like expands the opportunities and the resources that are available to families.
Yeah, that's another thing. She wanted to do the telehealth thing, and I just thought, I don't know if he would pay attention,
Hmm.
Like, are we going to be like, I'd like for him to start seeing somebody, and then if we feel like we could move to telehealth, we could move to telehealth. You know what I mean?
Sure. I
Or-
think it's really important for kids to build that connection with their therapist. And I prefer to do that in person. It's just my preferred way to do it. And like I said, it's different for different people.
Yeah, and what families prefer too, or what they can do, you know?
Absolutely. I do have a handful of families that are like, an hour or 2 hours away, and we do telehealth. Especially in, like, I'm in Iowa, so we have winter and the snow, and, or if mom gets sick and can't drive the kids in. I mean, there are occasions where, like I said, telehealth has been wonderful.
Who normally suggests that the kids come to see you? Is it their doctors? Is it,
Mhm.
another therapist? Do a lot of kids do talk therapy and play therapy at the same time?
Yeah, I get referrals from a variety of sources. I do get referrals from a lot from pediatricians. Mom or dad will come in and be like, "Hey, my kid's, struggling with this. What would you recommend?" And then the physician will reach out and refer. I get some from schools. Kids that are struggling in the classroom, or having social difficulties at school, things like that. School counselors, teachers. That's a referral source. And then sometimes just the families themselves will be like, "Hey, I noticed my kid's struggling and I want to get some help." And, I tell parents, you're the expert on your kid. You know, Even if you like, there's this visual jar that I've always wanted to make that I've never done, but you take like red marbles, like 365, and that represents the contact that parents have with their kids. Daily contact, pretty much. Then, like yellow, 180, and that's for teachers, because on average it's about 180 days of school. And then, like blue for the therapists, maybe 50. And you can visually see that, like, the influence and the resource that and the expert that parents get to be. I get to see kids an hour a week, if I'm lucky, 50 times a year, with camps and vacations and
Hmm.
illnesses and all that kind of stuff. So I rely on the parents' expertise to tell me what's going on. And yes, I do consult with, physicians and teachers, but it's really the parents that know the kids the best.
It's always a struggle too, I feel like, as a parent. Like, for me, before we were introduced to this, was, is it normal? Is it something that needs to be
Mhm.
dealt with? And I think, the parent really can have the last say in that.
Mhm.
But sometimes it's hard as a parent, like, is this just a stage? Is this, because I got a lot of, when I was telling, family members and stuff about it, they're like, that's so ridiculous. Like, he's just going through a phase. He's just this, he's just that. And our issue is my husband. So basically, what happened in the past couple years was we moved from Los Angeles.
Mhm.
We lived in Pittsburgh for 6 months, where my mom was going through chemotherapy.
Oh,
I was pregnant, and my son, not with my son, this was
sure.
his little sister. So he was
Mhm.
seeing all of this. He was like 18 months when we moved,
Yeah.
maybe. And then his dad was back and forth because he was still working in Los Angeles and we were in
Oh.
Pittsburgh. So he went through that. And then we moved to Georgia right after his little sister was born. And, dad was home a lot, but we actually had to, like, get rid of all of our savings because when we first got
Oh,
here, he couldn't find work. So it was a lot of, like, struggle. And I try not to
yeah.
show him that, but I can't help but notice, like, kids are very intuitive. And if
Mhm.
somebody's upset, they tend to get upset around them. And he is like, he picks up on it so easily, so easily. And, the stuff would go away and then it would come back. Well, now the issue is, like, he'll be like dad's best friend for like half the day. And then all of a sudden he doesn't want him anymore. Go away, daddy, this, that.
Sure.
Like, and my husband's done like nothing,
Hmm.
or my husband will come back from working a job. Like sometimes he's here, but he literally leaves before he gets up and comes back after he goes to bed, so he won't see him for
Absolutely.
a week at a time. And
Hmm.
he'll have trouble with that transition when he gets back. Like he
Hmm.
doesn't really want to be around his dad. Like,
Sure.
whereas I would think like he would get excited, it's almost like he doesn't trust being around him, which
Hmm.
I like, that's kind of the feeling I get. And it's really, I mean, it sucks, like, especially because my husband's so excited to see the kids, and my
Hmm.
daughter's too young. She doesn't give a crap. She's like,
Sure.
whatever, she'll love on anybody, wherever you're at, whenever. Like, she's the opposite. But my son, I think from going through all of that, like,
Hmm.
he's having, his speech is super delayed. What else? I mean, honestly, like, that's pretty much the only thing. Oh, and eating. He's like
Hmm.
refusing to eat a lot of stuff, to the point where,
Sure.
like, even his feeding therapist is like, he got so upset, and she's not able to connect dots between, like, what's going on. Like, it's not a
Hmm.
normal texture thing or whatever, that kids
Yeah.
normally have. So
Hmm.
that's why they were like, well, maybe you should try play therapy. And like I said, I am super open to it, like
Yeah.
super open to it. But is that a typical case that you would get?
That is absolutely a typical case that I would get. And, a couple different things. I do get referrals from occupational therapists and feeding therapists and speech therapists. And
Hmm.
again, they're able to kind of see things. Like I said, the parents are the experts, but and can like sense when something might be off. But getting that expert opinion, I think, is definitely important from an outside, like third party,
Yeah.
and having that objective opinion too, you know so I definitely, that's like totally textbook, the kind of referral that I would get, and it sounds like your son's been through a lot of different transitions, and he may be in a way protecting himself, like not wanting to get too close to dad for fear that he's going to, go away again.
Yeah.
And it's just his way of self-protection. And it sounds like on occasion he does let dad get close, and then he second guesses it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what's going on, I feel like. Yeah, maybe I should talk to
Sure.
his feeding and speech. Well, it's the same woman that does feeding and speech.
Sure.
So she sees him and see if she recommends that we go and step forward with it again. Because, like I said, I was going to give it a little bit of time. We had just gotten here.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe he'll settle and things will change. But
Mhm.
it has shifted a little bit, but it's still not to where, I would feel comfortable saying that it's completely normal toddler things,
Absolutely. And, don't be afraid to reach out for an assessment. I have
Hmm.
families come in and I'll do like a historical in a classic intake with the parents. I'll get like all the background information, get things from their perspective, and then I'll meet with the child 3 or 4 times.
Hmm.
And then I'll come back to a consult. And if see that the play is developmentally appropriate, that the child is meeting milestones where they need to be, I'll let the parents know that, and that's just ethical practice to be like, hey, I see everything's on track. Here's 1 or 2 things you may want to consider in the home. And if you need something in the future, let me know. And,
Hmm.
just to be honest and open with the parents.
Do you ever, and this is like sort of, I guess, a different style of question. Do you
Sure,
ever get parents that are just super resistant?
I do. Like I said in the beginning, I get parents that are like, you're just playing with my kid.
Hmm.
Or, they don't see the value in the play.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'll I can throw research at them, but some parents aren't into like research and things like that. It just takes time, and to be like, hey, this actually works, you know and
Hmm.
giving them 1 or 2 quick things that they can start in the home, like the reflecting the feelings, or modeling the courage to be imperfect, or whatever those things may be that's going to work for that family. Just to give them a couple quick fixes to be like, hey, we're on the same team. I want to work with you. Yeah.
Are there any super no-nos as parents that we should stay away from saying or doing around our children that can affect their mental health?
Oh, wow. I say, like, instead of like saying the super no-nos, I say more the super like things that you need to do. Like, be there for your kid, be able to listen to them. And consistency and routine is going to be important. Kids need limits. And yes, they're going to push back. That's developmentally appropriate. They're going to get into, power struggles. They're not going to like the sound of no at times. And being that consistent parent is what that child needs at that time. Obviously, there's boundaries, there's limits. I'm not with discipline and things like that. And yes, I know there's different schools of thought and schools of parenting, and we don't need to get into all that. But you know, being empathetic and open, and also having boundaries and consistency. So it's kind of like two sides of the coin. And parents, you can do it all. I believe in you. You can be both nurturing and the boundaries.
Hmm.
Hmm.
As far as setting boundaries,
Hmm.
like I'm just using my son as an
Sure.
example, obviously, because my daughter's not really old enough, but
Right.
I'm sure it'll help me with her as well. He's not good at timeout.
Hmm.
He's not good at when he throws his fits, it's like he's in it. And
Sure.
I just kind of let him go and make sure he's not messing everything up because I
Hmm.
don't want to put attention into that behavior. And if he does say anything to me, I'll say, I'm here, honey, but let's take some deep breaths. And he'll go, no, and he'll run. So I'll just let him like get it all out. And then I talk to him afterwards. I've
Yeah.
gotten drawback from a lot of people for that. Like, they're like, he's like knocking stuff over, and I will correct him as he's doing it. But from my understanding, when a kid is taking a tantrum, they're
Hmm.
not taking in information. This is a ball of emotion that
Yep.
exploded out of them. So in a situation like that where they won't do timeout, there's no way. I would literally have to chain him to the stinking wall. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way, kicking and screaming and like,
Sure.
so we actually, what we started to do was, and I know a lot of people say this is a no-no, we
Hmm.
would put him in his room and sit outside of the door, close the door. He would start banging on the door, want out, but I would sit there and say, honey, when you're calm, we will talk about this. When you're calm, we will talk about this.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward now, it's been probably like a year of us doing that. When
Hmm.
he gets super upset, he will go to his room and sit on his bed and calm down.
Exactly. Yes.
So, like, am I on the right path to like, because I don't necessarily discipline. Like, I will tell
Yeah.
my kids, no, that's not right, and explain
Hmm.
why it's not right if they do something wrong. And I understand they're just kids and they're like, everything is learning. And
Yeah.
you have to be like a broken record, like literally again and again and again, you're saying this stuff. Is there anything else I could implement besides that? Or is that just kind of just sticking with that whenever it happens?
Yeah, you're doing exactly what I would recommend. Like you
Okay.
said, when he gets those big emotions, he's in that fight or flight, in that brainstem. Like you said, no information. The cortex, the logic is like offline. It's not connected to the internet. You're not going to get anything through. So yeah, allow him that time to let those emotions out, allow him to regulate. And I think what you're doing is perfect. Allowing him the space, as long as he is not obviously a safety concern for himself or anybody else, which it
Hmm.
sounds like you've taken steps to make sure that's not the case, or
Hmm.
that is the case, that he's safe. you know, you're allowing him the space to express himself, and then you're there for him. You're establishing that connection, you're making that repair, and the discipline doesn't necessarily mean negative consequences. Discipline is to teach. And that is when, yeah, hey, we go back. You know, I'm curious what got you upset. Or I noticed when mom said you couldn't have the popsicle, you got upset. This is the reason I said that. Like you said, explaining and teaching and going back to that. And then, next time, maybe what we can do is we can take some deep breaths, or we can talk about it versus the big explosion, but and putting those things into place. And like you said, it may take 10, 20, 50, 100 times before he's going to come to you and be like, I accept that I can't have the popsicle 5 minutes before dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kids are going to need that repetition. And again, that consistency. Like it sounds like your son knows what to expect now. He knows the safe place to calm down, and he feels comfortable doing that. And the way the brain works, that's exactly what you need to do.
Nice. Well,
Hmm.
that's refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question for you.
Hmm.
When they're in, because he's like, almost 4. So he's
Sure.
coming out of all this super tantrum stuff. It's pretty
Hmm.
rare that he throws a tantrum, like
Yeah.
a bad tantrum. He gets mad and cries, but like a bad tantrum.
Sure.
So little kids, when they get mad and they're little and they can't communicate, they can't talk yet, and they throw themselves. I'm sure
Hmm.
that's a normal thing that all little kids do. Is
Yes.
there anything that you can do to help that?
What I say is get down on their level, whether it be on the floor or the couch or wherever the kid is. And again, model for yourself. Mom's feeling frustrated. I'm going to take some deep breaths. And then you take some deep breaths or you rock back and forth. You
Mm-hmm.
do what's going to be regulating to you. And we have in our brain what's called mirror neurons that we pick up the feelings and the sensations of the people around us. So
Mm-hmm.
if we start doing the regulation, then the kid is going to pick up on that.
Okay.
But focus it on you and modeling about you. And then the kid will eventually, instead of putting the pressure on, why don't you take some deep breaths, or even the we that still is focusing too much on the kid,
Mm-hmm.
take the pressure off the kid, focus it on you, and then the regulation will kick in, the mirror neurons.
So what about distracting while they're
Mhm.
in a tantrum? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Do you want them to work through their feelings, or is that something that you should be trying to do to get them out of it? Because part of me is like, okay, yeah, it ends the tantrum, but part of me is like, by not where
Not allowing them to process it.
yes, like you don't real fully allow them to process.
Hmm.
So by cutting it off, it's like they don't get the full understanding of what, why,
Hmm.
how do you
Yeah.
feel about that?
There is like there's different stages of the way that our brain goes into these big emotions, and it's like alert, alarm, fear, and then terror, where we're just again offline and we're not gonna. So when we're in like that alert, alarm phase, that early part, if we can distract, I say go for it. you
Mm-hmm.
know hey, let's go get a drink of water, let's go get a crunchy snack, because drinking through a straw regulates our nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Crunchy snacks like carrot sticks or apples, so it doesn't have to be, it can be a healthy snack
Mm-hmm.
that regulates our nervous system. Let's go run around the yard as summer's coming. If you can, and build in that regulation in your distraction, so they can kind of get like the distraction where they're not thinking about it, but the nervous system still gets the chance to let out whatever was going on.
Nice.
Hmm.
Yes, I love that. Okay, do you have any message for any of the parents out there that might be having a tough time?
You're doing a great job. I guess that's the thing. I have a lot of parents that come to me and they're ashamed, or they feel hopeless, or they feel guilty, they feel like a bad parent. No, you are doing the best for your child. And that's the message that I want parents to know. And that help is out there. Don't be afraid or don't be ashamed to reach out. That's what people, in our field is there for. We want to be that resource for you. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Like I said, I do have some parenting coaching classes that's online. If you check out my website, butterflybeginningscounseling.com, I have like YouTube videos that, are things that parents can work on in the home, little quick fixes of some things that I talked about. So, yeah, check all that out and feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Amazing. And I will get those links from you and I will put them in the description of this podcast.
Perfect.
So they're all right there. You don't even have to look for them, they'll be right
Wonderful.
there. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was
Yeah,
amazing talking to you. I was so excited about this because obviously it really hits home for me. So,
absolutely. It's been a wonderful conversation. I hope that you and the parents and everybody listening got a little gem here or there.
of course, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Like I said, so much cool information, right? I mean, I just think it's so cool that they can analyze from play with a child. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because that's all they know. They're just projecting what they know through playing. It's so cool. It's so cool. And I'm so happy I had her on the show today. Her information is in the description of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I have a page and I have a group, all the Mama Jack, JAC, the Mama Jack. Thank you so much for listening.